China's impact in Africa.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about we need to unite while we still can, then it's talking about getting rid of one of several evils that are polluting Africa. And without unity, that can't be done. And if we wait too long, if we wait any longer, if it's not now, then this evil that's moving into Africa now will prevent it from happening. It will be too difficult. It will be too hard. We already see the Chinese language being taught in Nigeria, for example. So as it is now, when I call my mother-in-law, she doesn't speak English and I don't speak enough Tree to communicate. Imagine if Chinese is thrown into the mix, then we'll have to try sign language. So the way China is moving hard and fast, they're very, like I said, they're silent, slow assassins, but once they're in, they're in. So if we don't get rid of China, we have to get rid of the lesser of several evils before we can also attack, say, the French and all of those other things that are left over from colonial rule. So the program is about unity, which will also touch on getting rid of that self-hate in order to unify, and also to get rid of the first of several evils that need to be eradicated from Africa, so that Africa can also go on to be its best.
Thank you.
So she killed it now. I can have it back.
Thank you very much for bringing us, as you have already said. Chinese are now being like a slow sniper.
Yeah,
they're
silent.
Yeah, they are silent, and then they coming in. They
come in and they start slow, same like they're coming to be a part of your community. And you know, if I could say one thing, like as far as we've attacked all of the horrible things that they're doing, but if there was one thing that Africa could learn and take from China, is that level of unity that they have. Even if you hate your next door neighbor as a Chinese person, if somebody does something against you, that man will come and defend you. You can't, you know, if you attack one Chinese, you attack them all, even if they hate each other. That's the level that we need to get to. And we don't want Africans to hate each other. It's just an example. You know, if you attack one Chinese, you attack them all. So the same should be said. If one person comes and attacks an African, then you're attacking all of us. Yes.
That is a good message. If one Africa is being touched, you have touched the whole Africa. So that is the motivation. I have been in Asia for so long, and my brothers and sisters that they are in Asia, they can also give this, because in Asia in Asia, no matter how they hate themselves, if you touch one, you touch all of them. Ask my fellow people, my fellow blacks that they are living in Asia. They will give for Asia before it comes to your turn. And that is what we are all here. As African, as a black skin, we should come together. When we come together, we can win our Africa. Asantewaa. Now we have looked about the unity.
Right.
Now we want to see. Now Chinese, they say they come in.
Well, let's just stay on unity for a minute, because when we're talking about unity, we're talking about a unified Africa, not a unified Ghana, not a unified Sudan, not a unified Guinea-Bissau. We are talking about a unified Africa. We need to unify Africa. That means that if you're a Nigerian and you go to South Africa, you will not be kicked out by a fellow black man.
Yes.
As far as you are a black man and he is a black man, you are brothers. If this is a black woman and this is a black woman, it doesn't matter if she's from Sudan and the other one is from Nigeria, you are sisters. That is the kind of unity that we need to get a hold of. With this whole thing that went down in South Africa last year with the black South Africans kicking the Nigerians out. That was the saddest thing that I think I have ever seen. And the media are calling it xenophobia. It was so far removed from xenophobia, because no black man is a foreigner on any part of the African continent. That was genocide by brainwash. Okay? That means to the level, brainwash to the level that a black man will kick another black of a black country, you know, a part of the African continent. So when we talk about unity, we have to unify everything. Everybody has to be united. It doesn't mean that everybody has to have the same ideals. and the same laws and the same, ways of life. But it means when you attack one, you attack all. When we do that, we can get the French and this the continuation of the colonization pact that can be removed. We can get the Chinese out, or we can bring in rules and regulations that they must to attest to. The Chinese don't even have to follow environmental law while they are there. Some of the stuff that they are in don't even require them to pay taxes, and taxes are part of the biggest revenue of a country to implement stuff that helps with medical care and all of those other things. So when we unite as a common continent, the United States of Africa, that doesn't mean that your country has to disappear. You can still be Nigerian, but if you are Nigerian, you are African. If you are Sudanese, you are African. If you are South African, you are African. It says African. So that level of unity is what's needed, and then you need to remove the self-hate for one in order to unite. Because if you as a black man, you hate your own self, imagine how you feel about your brother or your sister. So just because you have different countries within the continent of Africa doesn't mean that you can't be united. We came and we put borders in. We put borders in to segregate you guys, divide and conquer, and it's working. And up to now it has worked. And China have sat on the outside watching that, and now they're at a point where they can sort of squeeze themselves in. By putting those, before, you still had different tribes and different ways of life, but you were united as one people on one continent. Now what we've seen with that division is that we have Nigeria must go, and Ghana must go, and Nigerians being kicked out of South Africa. Whilst no African, no black man or woman is a foreigner on the soil of Africa. So that unity is what is needed in order to eradicate the Western poisons that are poisoning Africa as a whole, so that we can get rid of the French, we can get rid of the Chinese, we can make sure any foreign investment is for the continent. And if we do that, and we do it now, then we will have success. Africa will be a powerhouse and a main player in the world, especially with, particularly economically, because everything that Africa has, everybody else wants, and right now they're getting it for cheap. They're getting it for next to nothing. When we unite as an entire nation, then you will be able to export that stuff at top dollar. You will be able to, the Chinese construction, the loans that are coming into China for all these construction. So we see, they talk about roads and the train, I think in Kenya, and all this really wonderful stuff. Oh, they're building roads, they're building infrastructure, they're building all of that stuff. Let me tell you, the money they get for that comes from the petroleum that is being mined in South Sudan. Okay, that's a China National Petroleum Company. They're a major investor. They don't have to follow environmental law, so they are polluting the environment. We are now getting children that are being born with deformities, poisoning the livestock, so your cows, your sheep, your pigs, those sort of things. They're destroying fertile land, so now you can't grow your own crops in those particular areas. So now you're relying on those foreign imports and the plastic crap that China imports, and other countries too. It's not just China alone. So the China National Petroleum Corporation is a major investor. Now they're taking all of the, they are taking thousands and thousands of, I think it's over 30,000 barrels of crude oil out of South Sudan per day.
Per day?
Per day. The money for that crude oil goes into the Import-Export Bank of China. That's the money that China uses to issue loans to Africa. So the money, okay, so the oil comes out of Africa and it goes into the China Import-Export Bank. The money goes into Africa in terms of loans and investment. Now, when you take a loan from China, it's not just here's your loan, here's the time frame, here's the interest. It is, you will employ only Chinese. You will use only Chinese products, Chinese companies. They will be built to Chinese standards, which we know here is substandard. If you just want to go and buy a bed, if you want to buy an Australian-made bed, it's more expensive than a Chinese-made. Not just because it's imported from China, it's because when they import it from China, they don't have to go through the same rules and regulations. They don't have to meet the same level of quality that we have to make if you make it here in Australia. And that costs. So that's why it's more expensive. So they don't have to do that in Africa. They're not required to follow the environmental law. They don't pay tax. And so you end up with roads and train lines that are substandard, China-made, China-owned. And the railway that they're building, I might add, is also run by the China Rail Group. So the money comes out of Africa via crude oil. It goes back into Africa as a loan that needs to be repaid. Now you have that loan. In order to have it, you must employ only Chinese. So not even a single African will get a salary out of all of this construction that's happening. And then they leave you with substandard things, and then you end up having to pay that loan back. So they win, and they win.